Let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to zoom in up to 100%, and I'm going to move up the hair. You can see we've got a lot of wispy hair of different thicknesses and of different colors. I'm going to start by using that green Keep Eyedropper tool. I'm going to sample colors out of the hair. I'm going to grab a light tone, a couple of mid-tones, and maybe a dark tone or two out of the hair as well. There we go. So you see I've only sampled about 4 Keep colors. I'm going to do the opposite now with the red drop eyedropper. I'm just going to sample a couple blue colors out of the sky. Now, grabbing the magic brush tool, I want to make sure that that edge of the brush is a little bit soft. I want to make sure that the transition and threshold are set far apart and that my color decontamination is turned on. Now, I can just start painting away that blue color. You can see as I paint away that blue color, we're keeping all the hair. And if I turn on the mask mode by pressing number 3 on my keyboard, you can actually see that we're keeping even the smallest little wispy hairs that are hard to see against the checkerboard pattern. I'm just going to continue to mask away here, and we're going to move around a little bit. I've skipped ahead a little bit, and I may just continue to mask the hair along the front of her face and along her nose. And I'm even going to mask right through the bubbles that she's blowing. There we go. Let's zoom back. And you can see how I've masked along the top of her head and even down across the little bubble blowing device. One of my favorite things to do in MaskPro is to use the composite view mode. You can do that by pressing the number 5 on your keyboard or using the composite view button down on the bottom right here. What that does is it'll show whatever layer is sitting below the layer that we're masking. In this case, I have a scene of a park sitting behind it. This lets me see exactly what my composite's going to look like in real time inside of MaskPro. This lets me see if the quality that I'm getting is going to work with my image. And as you can see, that hair blends pretty well. Let's zoom in and take a look. There we go. Look at that. That blended great. It looks nice and realistic, and I'm keeping even those smallest little wispy hairs are blending in. It doesn't look like it's been masked at all. Now let's go ahead and we're going to repeat that same process over on the right-hand side of the image to mask out these bubbles. You're probably asking yourself, how is he going to mask out bubbles? They're perfectly transparent. There's really nothing to them. So if I paint away the blue, what's going to be left? Well, believe it or not, using the color decontamination in MaskPro, you can paint away the blue color, but still keep the luminosity and the volume of those bubbles. To do this, I'm going to create a new set of colors. You can always create new sets of keep and drop colors and turn them on and off at any time. That's why you only pick the colors that are appropriate for the area that you're working in. You don't want to pick every color to keep and every color to drop. So I turn these original sets off, and I'm just going to click on the new set icon on both the keep and drop color palettes to make new empty sets. Then I'm just going to repeat the procedure I did for the hair with the green eyedropper. I'm just going to sample the colors that make up the bubbles. That's the white specular highlight. And if I zoom in really close, you can see that there's some diffracted colors that make these up too. So I'm going to sample the light green and the magenta colors that are diffracted in the bubbles. And there's actually a little bit of a shadow that's even caused as well. So I'm going to grab that shadow tone at the bottom of the bubble right there, even though it's just a dark blue. Now I'm just going to grab the red drop eyedropper. I'm just going to pick a couple of blues out of the sky, and now I'm set. Let's zoom back out a little bit so you can see how this works. And grabbing the magic brush tool, I can just paint away the blue color component of those bubbles, but keep the volume of the bubble there. So I can actually see through the bubble and see the blue sky behind. Now if you look closely, there might be a little bit of a haze. I can zoom in and use the drop eyedropper to pick the color in the haze and then continue to brush, and it will help to clarify those hazy areas. Again, that's one of the great things about MaskPro, is I can actually see my results in real time. There's none of the click and pray that you get with a lot of other masking tools. And if I make a mistake, I can easily step back through as many mistakes as I've made, and I can always refine my keep and drop colors. Well, things are starting to come along pretty well. I'm going to grab the regular brush tool, which I showed you guys how to use before. I'm just going to clean up some of this area. I'm going to select my magic pen tool. I'm going to start right here on her chin, and I'm just going to start dragging with the magic pen along the edge. And you can see how it'll set the edge for me automatically. Now, one of the things I didn't show you in the basic video is how to set points manually. Sometimes the magic pen tool will have a hard time wrapping around very sharp corners, or if it's having a hard time following an edge that's a little out of focus. You can just release and click a little bit farther down the road, and it will set a manual point for you. You can also switch anytime you want between the regular pen tool and the magic pen tool. This is great if you hit an area that doesn't have an edge to follow. Let's say you're photographing something on a white background, and there's an area of a specular highlight that's the same color as the white background. The magic pen tool doesn't have an edge to follow in that area. The same can happen in a deep dark shadow, where the shadow of the background and the shadow of the subject don't show a decent edge. You can use the pen tool manually in those areas, and then come back to use the magic pen tool as soon as the shadow disappears. Once I'm done tracing out my area, I'm just going to wrap around the top and come right back into her chin where I started. Oops, let's make sure we don't lose that little piece of hair. And now just click in the space we want to get rid of. There we go. Now we just got rid of that whole area very quickly. And I'm also going to do the same in this little space right in here. You'll notice that whenever I have a hard time wrapping a sharp edge, I'm just letting go of the magic pen and setting a manual control point to wrap those difficult corners. There we go, another area knocked out. Now sometimes when you use the magic pen tool, it'll leave an undesirable edge. This can often be caused by an area that's slightly out of focus, or by an area that's backlit, picking up the reflection of what it sees in its background. In this case, you can see this along the bottom edge of the elbow. We get a little bit of a blue haze. There are some cleanup tools in MaskPro to help you clean up those types of edges. I'm just going to zoom in, and let's go down to the bottom edge of the image. And I'm going to use the chisel tool. Chisel tool is located just above the magic pen tool, and it works by removing just a pixel or two along an edge. Now, all I do is I just run that chisel tool along the edge, and it will remove just a small amount of information to remove that little bit of a blue halo around it. The nice thing about the chisel tool is it won't affect the interior of my image at all. If I was to run the chisel tool all through the inside, it's not going to paint anything away. It only works along edges. Very similar to the chisel tool is the blur tool, which is located right next to it. It works the same way. It allows you to blur an edge, and again, only the edge of the image. So sometimes where I have a crisp edge, and it's a different depth of field compared to my background, I may want to run that blur tool along the edge to soften the transition a little bit, which will make it blend in more naturally. No, things are coming along pretty good. I've got a couple more areas to clean up. I'm going to skip ahead, and we'll come back when I'm done. There we go. All I did is use the magic pen tool to knock out this little area along the back of her blouse, and then I used the magic brush tool, picking 2 more sets of keep and drop colors to clean up along the dark color in the back of her hair and around the front of her lips. Here's where we started against the blue background. Here's what it looks like painted away against transparency. You can even see the little hints of the bubbles still remaining against a solid white colored background, the mask itself, and our composite view. Once we're set, I'm just going to send this back to Photoshop by using the apply command.